this has been a great experiment, and I invited my old buddy Yianni to join in this experiment. And Kendra is the better half of nature's geometry. And what I forgot to mention yesterday, whoever saw what I talked about, Salvador Bahia, the capital of Bahia, is her hometown. So she's
a local.
Yeah.
She's local.
Brian, I have a question for you. Did you learn Portuguese before you met Kendra, or did you learn Portuguese after?
After, of course. I learned in the streets. She didn't have patience to teach me. Her father taught me my first words, and that's where it began. But yeah. So anyway, I wanted to acknowledge the amazing experience of this platform, and I think we should all strive to improve it and work together, because I think it's a very good educational tool. So we're going to have a quick conversation, but Yianni, I wanted to ask you, I think it'd be interesting. I think it would be interesting to tell the audience how we met, and then I'll give my version.
Well, your memory is probably going to be better than mine. It always has been, all right? But from what I remember, it was at the GIA conference that we had. It was I was doing a talk with my buddy Edward with Spinell, and I think, what were you doing? Were you just attending? I don't remember. You just got to fill me in there. What was it, 89? 1989?
No, okay, all right. It was 1991. It was the GIA symposium that took place in Century City, LA. Very glamorous. And,
I remember.
And we were a tad bit younger back then, and it was very exciting. I was asked to give a presentation on the new stone just discovered, Paraiba tourmaline.
Yes.
Right?
Which you are one of the world's experts today. I have to say that you are.
So I met you at that event, and I remember immediately connecting with this young guy. Weren't you working at GIA as a teacher or something at that time?
Yes, I was teaching. I taught there from 88 to 91. That was my last year.
Yeah, so you were a colored stone teacher, I think.
Right.
That's the same. It's the same venue that I met Robert.
We clicked it off right away. Because I had a fascination with Paraiba, and you were saying this stuff is going to become very expensive, and I was saying at that time, come on, Brian, it's like a tourmaline, man. How expensive can it get? You know.
So
you were right.
So back to the story. So what really made me introduced to Yianni was he invited people. I don't remember how many people went. He said, "I'm having a party on Malibu Beach. Here's the address." And how many people showed up? 100? I don't remember. But
no, it was actually, let me tell you, the exact count was 730 people.
So we're on that Malibu Beach, and they were dancing
on the roof. They were dancing on the roof of the house.
Yeah, well, he had dug a pit in the beach and had a spit going with a
eight pits. Lambs. We had 8 lambs cooking there.
So he was like roasting on an open fire spit.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, this guy's good. I can deal with this guy. All right, wait. Let's get back to our event here. There's one thing that I think we should educate the industry about, and the world at large. Mining is mining. Okay. Mm-hmm. It has a bad rap because bad things happen at mines sometimes. But what I really like to remind the world is that wherever you're sitting in front of your computer, if you visually delete everything that required mining to be there, if you get rid of it all, we'll be sitting on the dirt.
Yeah,
on the earth.
I totally agree. And I think, Brian, I think you, the other day when we were talking about it, you hit it on the exact point, because, if you don't have, the amount of energy that goes into, building machines, doing all these things is never accountable for. and the destruction on the industry. Our gemstone industry is a very small part of the ecological disasters. The gold does far more. The iron, the copper, vast destruction versus gemstones.
Absolutely. So for those of you that work with gemstones, colored gemstones specifically, diamonds are a different universe, but diamonds do fall into artisanal mining too. However, 80% of our colored stones come from artisanal miners. The amount of land degradation, environmental impact from stones is a pinprick compared to large stones.
And you're a geologist, so I can affirm that what you're saying right now is very true. And I just wanted to say, Brian, when you spoke about the diamond mines, let's not forget that diamond mines are Kimberley pipes that go straight down, a hole, versus having to destroy large areas of land. So straight down doesn't create that much destruction.
Yeah, as we know, the most devastating mining happening around the world for environmental impact is illegal gold mining.
Yes, I agree with you.
That's another big world. But
I think it's 90% of the destruction.
So back to the theme that I think we all need to relay or at least understand that everything we have, our modern world, everything requires mining to do this, to be here, to travel, to do all the cool things we like. But and indeed, as we go forward, we're moving into the green energy world, which we must, because the carbon energy has created in a couple hundred years huge pollution and huge problems for our planet and us as a species and everything else. So, but moving into the green energy sector, mining is going to have to increase almost tenfold for the ingredients. Now think about it. I'm going to give a quick example. A 100 megawatt power plant that runs on methane gas, for example, supplying 75,000 homes in the US, would require about 20 wind turbines and about 10 square kilometers of space. Just in that, that's like 30,000 tons of iron ore. That's like 50 tons of concrete, 900 tons basically of unrecyclable plastics. So all these factors, and in mining and manufacturing, all these things need to be included in the overall story.
Which they don't do that in diamonds, funny enough. They talk about the energy and everything else, but they don't talk about how much land has to be destroyed in order to build an iron machine that's going to pop those diamonds out, And iron, as far as I'm concerned, if I've been to Africa and seen the mines for copper, for iron, for nickel, and the amount of destruction they do to the surface of the land is tremendous. So, when you think about gemstones, they're just little, most of the time in color stones, it's small little pits that last less than, in most cases, they last months and people move on to another mine.
Yeah, if it's in a tropical environment, by the next season, there's stuff growing. Boom.
Right, exactly.
So just for our people that are makers of jewelry and are concerned about the environment, just know that artisanal mining is a very small impact. Can we improve the environmental reclamation around these mines? Yes, and we are, and we should. But it's easy to do because it's usually small scale.
Quite frankly, the mines that I visited, Brian, like I went to the mine in Tanzania where the Greeks were mining back in the 60s and 70s, and if you go to those places, the jungle has just completely taken over that place. Completely taken over. Yeah. So it doesn't take long. And funny enough, those pits create water reservoirs for animals to drink from and everything else. And it doesn't actually do any harm. And one of the areas that I visited where there was a big area which was very arid, during the rains it filled up with water, and I found out that during the dry season the animals had a place to go drink there. So there's some negatives and some positives, and I quite frankly I don't see that many negatives in artisanal mining. I see it as a way of feeding people. I think what's important is what we were talking about, which is the chain.
And so back to our industry here, even large-scale mines, and most of large-scale mines have deep pockets and they're big companies, and they have to be responsible, and they spend a lot of money trying to be responsible. But for us, sometimes there's large-scale mining and there's artisanal miners on the fringes because they're the ones that discover it usually, right? You had experience
in Africa. Large-scale miners, this is a very important statement. All the mines that you find in Mozambique and Madagascar, all these different Zambia, the discoveries are not done by famous geologists who go there in the middle of the jungle and find something. It's done by somebody who's digging for rice, who's digging for something, and they find a gemstone, they bring it to the city, and the next thing you know, the gemstones are discovered. So it's not like 90% of the discoveries are done by famous geologists. They're usually done by individuals, artisanals, who basically look for gems.
That's true. I mean, or by armadillos that happen to kick out a stone on a mound.
Or anthills, like the famous anthill garnet in the Pyro in Arizona.
That's right.
Right. So,
hey, there's another thing I want to touch on that you have a lot of experience because your career has put you around the world in Asia and Africa and all over the place, where you get to deal with the producers, but you also get to know the people in between the producers and the industry.
Right.
And that has to do with our chain of custody and the people that are involved. And that's one of the most opaque parts of our industry. Can you tell us anything?
Yeah, Brian, actually, that's a great question because I think that's the part that is the most misunderstood. And it's the part that will take decades to be able to achieve in terms of the chain of custody that we're talking about. Because, there is the people that, there's a tribe which, funny enough, they were doing diamonds and gold from the 1400s, from Mansa Musa, from West Africa, from Mali and Guinea, the famous tribe, the Mandingo tribe. Mm-hmm. And they had been doing business for gold and diamonds and trading for hundreds of years. And these Africans today control a majority of the artisanal mining in the tourmalines and the aquas and everything else. These Africans basically travel to different parts of Africa specifically, and they start trading. And that is a very risky business. I can literally say that hundreds have died, perished, not only from robberies and killings and everything else, but also from diseases and lots of other things. So we have to first, because everybody who doesn't understand anything about these, let's say, these isolated places in the middle of nowhere, is that it involves several things. It involves an investment of somebody's money to go out there. Because if I said to you, give me $10,000, $20,000 to go in the jungle and I'm going to buy something, right? Most people are not going to have trust, even if they know me, is they hold on to their money, right? So, and for me to give it to somebody, also, there's very little trust because you don't know if you're going to see that money back. So these guys, these Africans, they go to the middle of the jungle, they give the money for the equipment to go and to mine and everything else, okay? Yeah. They feed the people, which is very important. All they care about, funny enough, is not the gemstones. They just care to survive.
So these guys are actually locals in the region, and they're entrepreneurs because they see they can make a link and a connection between the source and they're taking risk. I get that. So that's important. That's important to understand.
Yeah, so not only do they take a risk when they go in the middle of nowhere with $10,000, because they're going to be robbed either when they go in there, right, with the money, and they have to sleep in the middle of underneath a tree with that money, or they're going to get robbed on their way out with the gemstones. And that's a huge risk. because there's all these gangs set up all kinds of traps for these guys. And we're talking about Africans here. We're not talking about whites, right? So on top of that, the risk that they have is the money that they invest, you know, in buying those stones, they cannot be guaranteed that they'll sell it when they get to the other side.
Right. So that's one link in a complex series of links.
Yeah.
And that's specific to that place.
Yeah.
Where I'm working in Brazil, for example, where I have a mine, and what happens there in this mountain range where quartz is being produced, and it's been being produced since, you know, for decades and decades now. There's a culture and an infrastructure that's already in place, and that gives a lot of work, and, you know, to the locals, and those locals are they're mining, and then the next minute some of the miners are, you know, have a way to sell to some of the aggregators right there. It gets passed on to the buyers from Brazil or from China or whoever shows up. Actually, it's just Brazilians, a couple foreigners, Europeans, and China, as we know,
right.
Which I think I'm not. Well, it's a mix. That's a whole nother story. But the Chinese are everywhere, buying everything, right? From gemstones to iron mines. That's another subject. But essentially, it's all the people in the community that are engaged in helping the miners, buying from the miners, gathering the stones, processing it, and finding the buyer. That's an important part of
That's not easy, Brian. You know, Brian, this is not easy. What people don't realize is that if you go to Bangkok, you will find literally tons and tons of rough that just sits there idly because people bought it. They had this dream of selling it. Then another deposit showed up a month later that was producing 5 times more, and it was cheaper. And so all they bought when it was rare, all at once isn't so rare, right? So that creates a problem because people now are stuck with 300 kilos of material that they invested, and they cannot sell it until the new mine runs out and they can sell theirs. And I know a lot of Africans who have literally $200,000 of their money stuck for 6 years, and they're waiting for that mine to deplete.
So, you know, so circling back to our community, which is people who share a philosophy that they want to contribute to help or to invest in the source, knowing that the land and the people are taken care of. Right. And these folks that are makers and designers and jewelers and artists like us, we are of that. This is our tribe. I think what's really important is that we appreciate the materials, we appreciate the art, we appreciate the beauty, and that's what we craft and passionately make and then offer to the world at large. So I think what we are doing is very important because we're trying to connect the makers and jewelers with the people in the source through that long chain. Now, transparency, I think, is very important and is essential in the future. But you know, we're not about quantity producing as much as it is about quality and magic, or you know what I mean. And so specifically, this group that comes to our group, and there's a lot of people that have the same philosophy. I think this is an evolving and growing and important sector of our industry.
Right.
Personally, yeah.
But Brian, the problem is that it's also about the complexity of keeping stock. You know, people at the mine, it's almost like a farmer that produces rice in Vietnam. You know, the people cannot expect the farmer who's growing, rice in Vietnam to be Wolfgang Puck, who sells, his rice in a whatever, in a pilaf of some sort. Everybody has got their job. So the cabinet maker who makes something out of wood, the croissant maker who makes something out of flour, there is an entire chain. What we need to do is, at the same time, not only bake croissants, we also need to support the people at the mines to, also learn how to bake as well, to to support the local designers in Africa, support the local jewelry makers, the local cutters. But then it becomes much more complex because you can have 1,000 cut gemstones and they are in Kenya. Now, you know what?
Well,
how does that person sell those 1,000 gemstones?
Well, what you just said is valid and key. It's like, and I think most of the people in our group of all of us in the Ethical Gem Fair, this is exactly what we're trying to do, is bring more skill and resource to the people that are mining these stones to be able to not only produce the flour but bake the cake. So, it's value added at the source, and because there are so many single source stones in the world, or unique localities connected with unique cultures and unique biomes, the environment, all of that information is what we are able to document and provide up chain to the people that are buying those materials and making things, because that's the whole story. It's a holistic story. It's people and land.
Brian, here comes something that makes things complex, and people don't realize this. Okay. For example, if somebody buys sapphires from Australia, for example, right, and brings them into Thailand, I've seen this happen, and that rough goes to 5 cutters. Each of those 5 cutters has their own technology for heating that sapphire. And in the past, there was very few sapphire cutters that were managing to be the successful ones, because even among the Thai community, which they were experts at treating, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody had a trick on how to turn the sapphire better than the other 4, right? So that made him more successful and able to pay more money for that rough. So now here you are in Africa, the African miner. He doesn't know. I mean, that guy in Thailand has spent 50 years of his life losing millions of dollars learning how to do heat treatment, right? Which I don't even know, right? And even if I get sapphires now and I get them in Africa and I try to cut them, I will not be able to make money from them because he knows how to make them better through the treatment. So our industry isn't just about cutting gemstones at the mine. It is so much more complex.
It's very complex. And that's one of the beauties of our industry. It is complex and diverse. I think our industry kind of represents how the world should be. Everybody, we all get along with everyone. We have around the world. Monica Stevenson just mentioned something here in the feed that she would like the Africans to actually buy their own stones and jewelry, and that is a very important point. For example, where the stones are coming from, and training people how to cut there, and teaching and getting people interested in making jewelry. There is markets in their own countries, and that could consume a big part of production. All the production of gems doesn't have to go to a few companies that have 1 million stores and launch.
I totally agree.
So that's a good point, and I think that's something that we should.
You need to pick your battles, Brian. Like rutilated quartz, it's all about the polish. It's how to cut it. It is also tricks. I mean, if you cut it the wrong way, right, you can destroy a star, right? So
rutile is a complex stone to cut and polish.
Absolutely.
The challenge of it has been fun. It's really fun. I've had stones you know, like, oh, here's this stone is amazing, badass, right. But how am I going to cut it? It's like, oh my God, there's so much in there. I'll put it down.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, and one stone in particular it was like 5 or 6 years before I finally said, I'm going to make that first cut. Boom. That's how complex stones can be.
I think, Brian, something that I feel that we should be doing is also promoting the artists in the indigenous countries. I think that is the solution, and I've said it for I don't know how many years, is to create not just only teaching them how to cut. The problem with teaching them how to cut is they don't know what to do with those gemstones, because the Indian families that do the trading, they buy rough from 10 years ago, they keep it in the basement. When somebody asks for Kariba amethyst, that's the highest grade, they have invested $2 million that sits in their basement. The Germans do the same thing. Yeah. Now, the thing is, there's a lot of gemstones, though, that don't need treatment, that are fairly clean, that it's just all about cutting. And we need to specifically focus on those things, teach the people how to cut. But then the issue is that once they cut them, they don't know what to do with them, because nobody's going to trust to send money in Africa unless the people have a reputation, and it takes them years to build reputations. I think the key is to help African or Burmese or Vietnamese designers to work with the local cutters, to use the local gold, and to sell the jewelry in the West without using middle people to sell those.
Exactly. So, right. And so in our group, in our little humble group that's barely known, we have examples of that. We have Moyo gems, we have virtue gems, we have legacy. You know, we have people doing just that. And you're right. This is how we can contribute to those communities.
Yeah. But Brian, there's the hunger we were talking about before we got online. I'm also disappointed in the hunger, because here we are experts. It's 1 o'clock, actually past 1 o'clock my time. I come here and I share my knowledge, and I share my knowledge with people. And then we do these webinars where you got guys like Rui, yourself, retired people from Cartier, and from the entire world, you get only 50 people watching that show. Although the majority of the people that I know of are in, you know, I mean, if you think about all the youth and everybody else who has these aspirations to become designers and jewelers, it's impossible. Only 40 people will sit there and watch a webinar that is sharing knowledge from people that have 50 years of knowledge.
So let me state here.
It's also hunger. How hungry are you?
All of you who have joined this session in the last 4 days are pioneers.
We've been doing this a long time.
No, it's an experiment. So we don't have a lot of people viewing.
I don't even sell. So I'm very, you know, I don't even sell, and I'm glad that you guys are selling, because
we're conducting
people are selling. You know?
We're conducting an experiment here, and I think it's very successful. And it's okay that we don't have a lot of people, but this platform and what we're doing, and the key is education. I mean, this is why we're here. We're here to help.
That is the best word that we've used, and something I've been preaching: education. Education is everything. Not education in growing potato farms, but education in cutting gemstones, making jewelry, all these things. All these large-scale mining, all they want you to do is see you grow potatoes in this part of the world. Go there and teach them how to make jewelry, for God's sake.
No, well, this is great, because this, I don't know, hopefully people will share. I think these are being recorded. So we can share these sessions, and everyone watching, share these. And the point is it is about education, because with education and knowledge, we can have more force. And for the things we want to do, everyone in our small little group here, responsible source stones, ethical gem dealers, you know, in quotation marks, you know, because there's too many interpretations around those stones. The thing is everyone must realize that we have a philosophy and a care, and united with the makers and jewelers that are doing amazing work, beautiful art and jewels. we will expand. So I just want to reaffirm that this little experiment that we've done for the last 4 days is very valid, and we will build upon it.
And it's important that people understand that everybody who participates in everything that is being done is not Mother Teresa's. As a very good friend of mine, Princess Intisar in Kuwait said to me, there's nothing wrong with giving, shares of your money to, to people, percentage of the sales and everything else. But, the people involved also have to make money. And I'm a very firm believer in that. I think the key here is in sharing, and you were talking about the people at the mines baking the cakes and everything else. Well, you know what? I'm all about baking cakes everywhere. If you're a great baker of cakes in the U.S. and you need flour or some vanilla bean from Madagascar, you have just as much of the right to cut in the U.S. as you do in Africa. It just depends on how hungry you are, So I think we need to teach them how to bake cakes, but we also need to acknowledge that everybody has a right to baking cakes.
I have to say something about cakes because this was an interesting thing. A girl in Brazil, she's in São Paulo, a big city, and she's taken from her mother and from her father. I think the father is a baker and the mother does something in beauty. And she started making cakes and selling it. She has a whole business. And then she comes on and says, cakes are a universal language.
It is true. It is true. And and also, believe it or not, cabinet making, the wood that you use. If you're a cabinet maker, it doesn't mean that, we should limit the cabinet making only to the places where they grow wood. If somebody is a great cabinet maker, wants to make cabinets, he has every right to make it. The only thing that we need to do is, I think it goes back to the word that excited me, was education. If you're going to take something from somewhere, you got to be able to give back to it, okay? And the problem is that the people that take the gemstones don't give back knowledge in gemstones. They give knowledge in potatoes or, whatever. And I believe that growing things at the farm, like you said, is very important. But it's also important to teach the people how to slice, how to make beads, how to do things that they can basically self-empower themselves with the natural resources of the ground.
Very true. So that's, in our project at the Rutile Quartz Mines, that's exactly what we want to do, is bring in, set up lapidary, teaching and such, and connection in that way. But growing potatoes, there is a way to do it that becomes profitable for the community, and that's a whole part of my project, is to do regenerative agriculture. It's science. It's something sustainable. So just to end, because I know we've gone over time, although time is mutable, time is kind of irrelevant these days. The point is that what we want to do is create this amazing garden as an educational center where we incorporate the elementary school and the locals and make it part of their educational program. Because by regenerative agriculture, you're improving the soil in time, which can be applied anywhere in the world to all the artisanal mining communities.
Because food is important. Food is important.
Who doesn't like food?
Brian, most of the people in Africa, one of the reasons that they resort to slavery, as people call it, is because the governments are so corrupt. Okay, that they literally, they create an environment where people are hungry, and if we do not go after the generals and the politicians who are basically corrupting everything,
that's a huge subject.
Right.
That we will.
I think everything goes back. Brian, I think everything goes back to government.
Yeah,
if the government is not.
Yes, corruption is one of the big elephants in the room. that
Right.
it's going to be a whole
The big subject.
Okay, but I don't want to bore people with too many subjects at once. But
Right.
the
But
point.
they're all interconnected, Brian. They're all interconnected.
Yes,
you know?
but the point, Yianni, the point about growing food in the village, you're creating food security right there, so they're less dependent on that government.
Right. Very true, but you cannot, a big mining company, I'm not talking about artisanals now, but a big mining company cannot come in there and take $500 million worth of goods and teach the people how to have chicken farms, which are worth, God knows how little, okay? You need to also share, not just only in the 1%, but you need to teach the people how to make ruby beads.
No, yes, we're on the same page there, but I'm telling you, mines are not sustainable. The resources run out, they end. And I've been working with these amazing people in an amazing place in Brazil for so many years. And I know that eventually that beautiful golden rutilated quartz is going to be unavailable because it's
the best in the world.
It will become economically impossible to go get it. Some of the
mines. How long will that mine last? How long will that mine last? How long do you think? How many years does it have left?
I think there's another generation. However, it's more costly because the mines are down to 100 meters. Right. And this is artisanal mining. You know what that takes. So what I'm saying is, while we're making money mining stones, let's put in the gardens that provide food security and grow medicine, herbs, spice, chocolate, coffee, things that will be sellable at the same time.
Brian, if you look at the situation in Burma and Mozambique, they have one thing in common, which is generals. The generals try to control the mines in Mogok. The generals control the mines in Mozambique. And as long as that circle exists, right, all the chicken farms and all that stuff that we're going to try and do, and the education, right, it's we need to also, funny enough, as much as I hate being politically involved, it's all, like you said, you have to, on one hand, help out with education. On one hand, you have to do, public speaking to speak against corruption.
It's indisputable that you are politically an activist. you are one of the people that has gone to the extremes. And
Brian, I lived in Burma 7 years with the junta. I was there 7 years fighting the corruption there, and it's sad to see it come back in with democracy and go out again. It hurts me like crazy,
Okay, so I'm going to have to interrupt because I know we've gone way past 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And now here's the thing. Whoever's watching, just go to the lounge. Myself, Yianni, we will be available, and all the other amazing people of our group. Just come hang out. Go grab a drink, or I don't know what time it is where you are, but it's cocktail hour here.
You know what I love about you, Brian? You know what? At the end of the day, I always tell people when they ask me about who do I trust, what is ethical, what is sustainable, all these things, I think that is just a whole bunch of, sorry to say, it's a whole bunch of garbage. You know what? At the end of the day, what really matters, if I meet somebody like you and I talk to you for 5-10 minutes, I already got this feeling that I trust you, meaning I have this feeling that you're a decent person. Right? I get that from Kendra, I get that from your kids, I mean, the way today we were watching, the grandkids were sitting there watching us, everything else, you've taught your kids well. Reputation is a very important part of our industry, and everybody's trying to make it all digital. At the end of the day, when you meet people and you feel good about them, you have to trust that the people that they're going to treat at the mines is going to be the same way that they treat you. And we need to put a lot more emphasis on, and that's the reason we've been friends for almost 30 years, is because, I come to Tucson, you give me your bedrooms to be there with my family, we hang out with the kids, and this is how I saw you in Brazil, when I went there, you never embarrassed me. You weren't arrogant. We sat with the locals, everything else. And I think that's a very important part. A very important part is how we behave ourselves when we go to the mines, how we are with people. And if we're good with our families and with the people, that's very important.
Yeah, if you exchange with people, whether it's friends or even some stranger, you
Yeah,
exchange from the heart.
yeah.
Feelings from the heart are real, eternal, and full spectrum. So that doesn't go away, ever goes away, because you
No,
recognize that.
Yeah, that is
I
the
agree.
beauty of it's the beauty of our industry, and that we can connect on those levels globally. Every philosophy, religion, race, continent. That our industry is advanced in that sense. If if the world could get along as our industry does, that would
You
that'd be
know,
good.
Brian, I agree with you. And when you speak about getting along, I want to leave with a very positive message. You know, a lot of times I know where the material comes from. You know, it's very easy today to check on anywhere to find out where the mine is. But if I'm going to buy, I'd rather buy from you, right?
Mhm.
That you go there versus because I'm one person, I cannot go to the rutilated mines today, go to another mine tomorrow. And I think it's very important that we respect the chain of business people because we cannot be in 1,000 places at the same time. I cannot be at the Paraiba mine. I cannot be at the Garnet mine. I cannot be everywhere. The key is to, in my opinion, at least what I've been doing for years, is I do 99% of my business for the middlemen, which are many, with the indigenous people,
Yeah.
you know, or Africans. So although I can buy for half the price at the mine, and I know exactly where the mine is, right? I don't mind paying double sometimes, or 20% more, or 30% more. It doesn't matter because I know the risks that that person took to be able to get that stuff out of the, you know, out of the place, to grade it, to the mistakes they made. Sometimes they make
Yeah.
mistakes. Sometimes they don't make mistakes.
So that is an important part of the story that I think we can continue in that education. I think it's
Yes.
important, and I think that's part of the opaque part of the industry that we can educate on. That, you know, and it's been mentioned here in the comments. You know, the real, it's like there's really what one other thing we really need to work on right now is equality. It's about, you know, diversity and bringing in everybody at the same time. So there's the problems and issues are vast. It's
Yes.
it's so all these, but the thing is our industry and our group, we can address all those. We want to address all those. None of us are experts. I mean, you know, Yanni and I have a lot of years and a lot of boots on the ground, so we have a lot of information and we're happy to share, and that's the education.
Absolutely. The
And
same way we learned from the elders, Brian. We learned so much from the old generation at all the shows that we attended.
who you calling old?
They-
I said that we learned from the elders, okay?
We did. That's right.
So,
But
you know, I remember all the shows that we attended and how many hours we spent until 2 o'clock in the morning talking to these older guys and just sucking up every word that they were talking about. You got to pay your dues. But what I think, I mean, you're in Brazil, I'm more in Africa, but one of the things that I want to do is, one of my goals is I want to empower designers, not just only women, but men, women, designers in Africa. That is a very
yes,
big goal for me. I think
yes,
more than cutting, we need to do it simultaneously. We need to get retired Italian designers from Vicenza to come down, spend you know, like 2 months in Victoria Falls teaching people how to make jewelry, and we need to support the local designers. I don't want to see. I'm gonna definitely. I don't want to say I don't. I'm a Greek, but I'm born in Africa. I have every right to the continent. Okay, but yeah, very few people know that. But the point is that if I'm going to take something from Africa, I need to be able to give back. So if I can bring a teacher who's going to teach 10 girls, 10 boys how to make jewelry, I know that when I take gemstones from there to make jewelry that I sell in the West, that I have in return given back to.
Well, that's right, and that's part of the process of us. We're the people that are interfacing with the producer
Yes.
and the rest of the world. It's
Right.
people like me and you and there's and Gem Legacy and Virtue Gems and Moyo. We are the people that want to bring back and help, and that's what we're doing, and we will continue to do it. You know, I'm involved in a project in the Amazon, and we're just getting going, and it's like I see so much.
The best time with you. You're the best travel buddy, Brian. You know, you're a geologist, which I never studied geology. Okay, you're amazing with the locals. The locals love you. You speak Portuguese super, which I couldn't speak when I arrived there. Which means that you're great to take to Mozambique with me because they're going to love you there. They're going to love Kendra as well. All right, but the idea is that we share in the wealth and we share in the knowledge. Education, yeah, definitely. These are really beautiful subjects, and we need to do that more than just farming. Because one of the key issues that I have, they talk about teaching people how to farm. A lot of times that farming isn't really farming. They're actually because they take gemstones out of the land, they have to go and replant, right? And they're teaching people how to plant in those areas just to be able to cover up for the ecological problems that they created. I think there's a deeper subject, and that is, if you're doing gold, teach people how to make jewelry. If you're doing rubies, teach people how to make cabochons. You don't need to teach them how to do the complicated things, but teach them how to use the low-grade quality for first.
That goes back to the point. For example, we want to set up rudimentary cutting education at the source, and then the people that come into that, and we will certainly try and recruit more women, because girls and women have an affinity even for doing incredible work. But so once that's established, then yes, indeed, why not make jewelry?
Yeah,
because the market is local. It's local. It expands goes to the capital city. So we create industry within each country, which is actually more sustainable than trying to pull off something that you sell in London.
I agree. Totally agree.
But it's like it's a sequence of events.
There's one more thing I want to talk about because Amefa mentioned some things about the knowledge of the Africans in jewelry making. Well, I have to say something. The Indians are incredible craftsmen, but if I'm going to set gemstones, I'm going to set them in Thailand, sorry to say. And a lot of Indians will probably hold that against me because they say, well, we also know how to set gemstones. But the reality is, without making comparisons, is that the people from different cultures have learned under different ways. The people that settled in Bangkok were a lot of French, a lot of Armenians, everything else that had a tremendous amount of knowledge on setting, especially Armenian.
Yianni, I'm going to interrupt you.
It's okay.
I'm going to interrupt you because the rest of my friends and collaborators are at their tables, and we already went 15 minutes.
Let's go there.
Yianni, just jump on a table with any of us and join the conversation. But let's go there now. I apologize for going.
No. I mean, we could talk forever.